Legend is a word that is thrown around all too often this day and age, but the term surmises the reign of the Mapogo Lions in the Sabi Sands to perfection. Immortalized by the famous wildlife documentary, Brothers in Blood, the Lions of the Sabi Sand, the Mapogo Lion Coalition was a notorious band of brothers that went on a vicious quest to dominate and rule the Sabi Sands region in South Africa's Kruger National Park. The coalition became infamous for its sheer power and strength in taking over and controlling an area of approximately 70,000 hectares. They were true warriors and proved themselves time after time on the field of battle. During their prime, 6 of these magnificent specimens patrolled their territory, dispatching all competitors and striking fear into the hearts of all that found themselves in their way. In the first months of 2006, the 5 subadult lions in Makulu left their pride. They now had to fight for themselves, but by sticking together, they increased their survival chances. Whilst living among themselves, the lions learned to be successful hunters. As they grew in size and experience, they were able to take down large prey, such as hippos, young rhinos, and even giraffes. According to Dave Salmoni, successfully taking down Cape buffalo was their key to success. During the buffalo hunts, Kinky Tail, also called Shaka, and Mr. T, also called Satan, were often observed being more aggressive and bringing down the buffalo. The coalition of 6 male lions first appeared in March 2006, when they claimed the territory of their own by force. Usually, lions are quiet when entering a new area, but the Mapogo clan moved in with great dominance and power, roaring loudly and killing the males from the area with ease. For rangers and trackers, the idea of a 6-member coalition was extremely rare, and in the years to come, they witnessed the most relentless reign for power and dominance known to the lion population. The Lion Coalition was allegedly named after South Africa security company, Mapogo A Mathemaga Security. No longer in operation, the Mapogo A Mathemaga was known for its intense and often brutal forms of dealing with criminals. The 6 lions of the Mapogo Lion Coalition are named Makulu, the leader, Dreadlocks, Pretty Boy, Rasta, Kinky Tail, and Mr. T, who was notorious for his extreme brutality, got his name from the classic Mohawk style resembling that of the Mr. T character from the A-Team. These 6 male lions originated from the Spartan, Airfield Field Pride, sired by the West Street males. Makulu, the oldest member, is the only lion who came from a different pride, while the rest were brothers. During their rule, the Mapogo Coalition wiped out countless prides. Together, they killed over 100 lions that posed a threat to them, including females and cubs. Brutalists, they took over whole territories with unprecedented aggression, and challengers were often eaten during acts of defiance. The Coalition of 6 shifted the entire ecosystem in the Sabi Sands area, dominating and controlling an area that was once ruled by 8 other prides. The Mapogo Lions are probably the most well-known lion coalitions in recent history. They became famous for their brutal and ruthless tactics and how quickly they took over their new territory. They were different from normal coalitions in that they killed just about every lion that they came across. While not unheard of, it's less common for lions to form such big coalitions. With 6 members, the Mapogo Lions had a massive advantage. So, instead of many smaller coalitions fighting for dominance, the Mapogos were able to rule over 8 prides, completely changing the entire Sabi Sands ecosystem. The Mapogo Lions were also reported to have taken down buffalo, adult giraffes, and even young rhinos and hippos. Not only were they killing every lion that crossed their path, but also eating them. The Mapogo Lion Coalition's ability to control and protect such an expansive area of land was unprecedented in the lion population. They will forever be remembered for the legendary force. How did the Mapogo Lion Coalition break? Despite ruling a large territory, the Mapogo Coalition wasn't functioning smoothly due to internal rivalry. Many fights often broke out between the leader Makulu and Mr. T. A closely contested clash then happened between Mr. T and Makulu, in which Makulu managed to grab and bite Mr. T's legs and win the encounter. After this fight, it was observed that Mr. T and Kinky Tail broke off from their four brothers and headed east to control the northern part of the territory. Mr. T and Kinky Tail were then seen patrolling and guarding their territory for 2 years, managing to fight off other rival lions. However, in June 2010, a coalition of 5 male lions, named the Mingoli Lions, entered Mapogo territory to take over. The 5 males were witnessed scent marking and roaring loudly near the Mapogo's territory. In a buffalo hunt, Kinky Tail and Mr. T were able to isolate the youngest of Mingoli Lion males who were on the lookout and began chasing him. Soon, they caught the intruder, and Mr. T bit down on the male's neck. Mr. T ripped apart the male's groin area, inflicting tears and bleeding. The Mingoli Lion male tried to fight back. Eventually, Kinky Tail and Mr. T managed to break the 5th Mingoli Lion lion's spine, and he was left immobilized and left to die a few hours later. Later that same night, a filming crew witnessed the 4 remaining younger Mingoli Lion lions on the move. 2 of them were exposed to Kinky Tail, who immediately charged at them all by himself. They ran with KT on their tail, and the remaining 2 Mingoli Lion lions came up behind KT. Without the experience of being afraid of anything, Kinky Tail attacked all 4 of them by himself, eventually on a dirt road, under a cloud of dust. The 4 Mingoli Lions had pinned down Kinky Tail. The 4 males immediately started to bite and rip apart Kinky Tail. 1 lion was biting his neck, another at his back. The 3rd bit off Kinky Tail's testicles and genitalia. The Mingoli Lions managed to successfully snap Kinky Tail's spine, thus immobilizing him and leaving him with 0 chance of survival. Mr. T eventually arrived and attempted to rescue and fight off the Mingoli Lions, but was outnumbered and outmaneuvered and forced to flee. 2 Mingoli Lions attempted to track Mr. T, but were unsuccessful and returned to kill Kinky Tail. The 4 lions had started eating most of Kinky Tail's hind legs and his entire tail. He was seen taking his last breath while being eaten alive. During the altercation, Mr. T attempted again to save his brother. However, still injured from the previous encounter, his attempt was to no avail, and he again fled. Mingoli Lion lions took over the territory and the pride of the 2 defeated lions. Following Mr. T's death, the last remaining Mapogos, Makulu and Pretty Boy, had to leave their territory to Salatis, fought a coalition of 2 Kruger males, Freddy and Limper, to occupy their territory, and were driven off their territory. One of the Kruger males, Limper, later died due to injuries from Makulu. They were sighted in 2012 side by side, entering the Kruger National Park through the gate attributed to Paul Kruger. The remaining 2 were once again seen feeding on a buffalo in October to November 2012. In January 2013, Makulu was seen for the last time at Mala Mala, neighboring his old haunt, the Sabi Sand Reserve. At this point, he was almost 15 years old and largely exceeded the average male lion's life expectancy. Should the wildlife officials have intervened with the Mapogo Lions? With the sheer brutality of what the Mapogo Lions got up to, and the high numbers of lions that they killed during their reign, many have said that the wildlife officials should have intervened. However, even though this was an extreme case, lion coalitions are part of nature. Only the strongest and most ruthless lions will become resident males, ruling over prides. Male lions will always do what they can to survive and pass on their genes, which forming coalitions allows them to do. The Mapogo Coalition was not the first, nor will it be the last large coalition. While it seems hard to comprehend how the lion population will survive these killings, they will. The survivors of each onslaught will become the next generation, just as the survivors of the past large coalitions. While it certainly is harsh, it's just the nature of lions, fending for themselves in the wild. If ever in living memory, there was a lion coalition that ruled over its domain with a genuine fear-mongering force, it must have been the Nach Coalition in Kenya's Maasai Mara. Forget about the Mapogo Coalition in South Africa's Kruger National Park. The Nach Coalition was the stuff of folklore. This incredible coalition was unlike any that had ever been seen before. The strangest thing was that it was made up of a father and his 5 sons. This was unheard of in the Lion Kingdom. The young lions must have killed their father, but it goes to show how feared Nach was, and how good he was at managing family dynamics. Who was Nach? Nach, or Kali, Swahili for fierce, was born in 1999 or 2000 and formed a coalition with another young lion called Light Male. By 2004, the two were confident enough to challenge the Marsh Pride Lions that were made famous by the BBC's Big Cat Diaries TV show. They dislodged Simba and Blondie from their perch and made the pride their own. As is the custom in the Lion Kingdom, they killed the cubs and went on to sire their own with the lionesses. In mid-2005, other lions were encroaching on the Marsh Pride's territory, and Nach's partner, Light Male, was killed by 3 invading lions. Many predicted that this would be the end of Nach, but against all odds, he held on to his territory by staying close to the lionesses and keeping a low profile. The pride had 8 cubs when Nach was finally dislodged in 2007. Once again, it was predicted that Nach wouldn't survive long as a nomad. But then he did something unthinkable. When he was chased away from the Marsh Pride, he joined his sons, 5 subadult male cubs, who'd barely escaped with their lives when their father was dislodged. They were now nomads in the wild. Nach took care of his sons, Nach II, Mighty Long, Ron, Caesar, and Grimace, for more than a year until they were fully grown. Nach was probably 9 years old when their reign of terror began in the Mara in 2008. Jonathan Kailo, a safari and photography guide with over 10 years of experience in the Maasai Mara and founder of Maiken Safaris, remembers the coalition's rise and dominance. My guiding career began almost at the same time when Nach and his sons built one of the biggest and fiercest coalitions ever seen in the Mara. Nach was a brilliant and beautiful black-maned lion, and it took guts and skill to build this complicated union with his sons. The 6 lions dominated the Mara, over 1,000 square kilometers for years, and sired dozens of cubs, and almost all of the prides here. During that period, any guest that came to the Mara and did not see Nach and his sons left disappointed. They were celebrities, and I remember the 6 lions roaring simultaneously, and some of my guests would even try and hide under the seats of the safari vehicle, says Kailo. Within a few years, they'd established absolute dominance in the Mara by killing and intimidating lions that stood in their way. They ruled over several prides including Paradise, Serena, Rakero Breakaway, Rongai, Olkiumbo, Majiyafisi, and the Lookout prides. Immortalized in the Disney film African Cats, which was released in 2010, Nach and his son's prowess at hunting was well illustrated. Fang, a fierce and mean-looking lion, with one of his canines hanging out of his mouth, had his territory invaded by Nach and Nach II. Fang was no match for the two and he ran away. The pride's lionesses, however, put up a spirited fight. The 2 Nach boys couldn't overpower them and left. The pride was saved. Fang returned, but Nach came back after a while with Caesar, Ron, and Grimace in tow. Some of the most powerful moments in the film are when Nach meets his sons and is walking towards Fang territory as the sun sets. You could almost feel the power, malice, and murderous intent of the Nach Coalition as Samuel L. Jackson narrated. Together, they are the most powerful force in the land. Fang fled once more, never to be seen again. And several months later, several Nach cubs were born. Niles Mogensen, a senior program scientist with the Mara Predator Conservation Program, described the Nach Coalition as a powerful force who were all astonishing males and detrimental to other lion populations. Although Nach was an old lion and in an unusual relationship with his 5 sons, he stood toe-to-toe with them. He was the alpha male and made the boys know that until his age caught up with him. There are other large coalitions in the Mara, and some of them are controlling many prides, but none were as notorious as the Notch Coalition, says Niles. A single male lion is a formidable opponent, but when you have 5 more big and strong male lions who are expert buffalo and hippopotamus killers, then it's a recipe for chaos. It's not known how many lions they killed during their almost decade-long reign, but it's believed to be in the dozens. Their reign was not all rosy. Due to the incredibly huge territory that they controlled, it seemed that they had themselves thin, with Mighty Long vanishing in the Mara Triangle in 2010, probably killed by other male lions. By now, Notch was on his last legs. He was more than 14 years old when he died in 2013. He had split from his boys in the last few years of his life, but was always near them for food and security. Jonathan Kylo was one of the last few people to see Notch alive. His state had deteriorated, and he was emaciated. We could see that he had just a few days to live. His sons had done a brilliant job of keeping him alive over the years. He still had his huge black mane, and although weak, he was as defiant and proud as ever. A few months after Notch's death, Grimace also died deep into enemy territory, and although the coalition was now cut in half, they were still formidable. Although their territory had shrunk from their heydays, Ron, Caesar, and Notch II were still intimidating and menacing to other lion coalitions. Sometime in 2016, Ron was killed by the Sand River males, who were slowly becoming a formidable coalition. Caesar died in 2017 after he developed a limp on his hind legs. Notch II was the only one remaining, and he left his territory quietly without putting up much of a fight. The coalition never really stayed with the pride, but roamed the Mara constantly looking for females to mate with, and in the process killed many cubs, including many of their own. As they produced quite a lot of offspring in the Mara with different prides, many lions today probably have and share the Notch genes. But the question is whether it has caused any inbreeding or not. We just don't know, concludes Niles Mogensen. With the demise of the Notch Coalition, the sons of Notch still hold sway in the Mara, with Caesar II, Ron II, Blue Eyes, and Dongo forming the Recaro Coalition. They are formidable and ruthless and have been known to kill their cubs. Notch's grandsons control 4 huge prides. Notch and his sons were the most famous lions in the world due to their unusual dominance, and this led to intense scrutiny, which increased the number of visitors to the Mara, and the dwindling number of African lions got the spotlight they deserved. Will there ever be another pride of lions as dominant as the Notch Coalition? We doubt it, but the legacy of that deadly lion gang lives on, courtesy of several generations of offspring they sired across the Mara in a decade of absolute domination and carnage. The Mingoli Lions were a brotherhood, 5 males from the same pride who, instead of going their separate ways, decided to stick together. Their bond was strong, and their strive for dominance became an incredible story of survival as they asserted themselves on the other prides in the area. The 5 brothers were born between 2004 and 2005 in the privately owned Mingoli Game Reserve. The reserve is bordered by South Africa's Kruger National Park, Sabi Sands, and Timbavati Game Reserves. In 2010, they left their pride, and together, they traveled southwards to Sabi Sands, where they would rain terror on the lions already established there. The lions in the park didn't know what was coming for them. Bold and brazen, the brothers excelled at taking down buffalo, and they were about to excel at domination too. The brothers were distinctive, each with his unique marking, such as a dark mane or a scar on his nose. Their rise to domination began in 2010. Their first task was to take down their competitors, lions that had been in Sabi Sands their whole lives. They had barely settled in for more than a year when they encountered 2 male lions in the Landalozi Reserve area. They belonged to a pride known as the Mapogos. It was an encounter that ended in tragedy. The 5 Mingoli males tore into the 2 others. The fight that ensued was bloody and brutal. One of the 5 brothers became isolated from the rest and was attacked with such force that he broke his spine and died from his injuries. But that wasn't the end of it. The remaining 4 males were determined to seek revenge. They waited until cover of darkness before their counterattack. Stealing through the night, they raised their heads and sniffed the cool air. They had picked up the scent of the male lions. They closed in, each paw print soft and silent on the dry, dusty ground. When they came within striking distance of the 2 males, they pounced. Amongst growls and groans, the fight broke out, but it wasn't long before one of the local lions lay limp and lifeless on the ground. The other male had tried to defend his brother, but realizing now that there was nothing he could do, he fled, running non-stop back to his remaining 4 brothers on the western fringes of the reserve. It was thought by some that the 2 gangs of brothers would come together in the ultimate battle for dominance, a showdown like no other in the weeks or months to come. But it never happened. The defeated male kept well away from the newcomers. The Mingoli Brotherhood had asserted their first display of dominance. They had claimed their first piece of land and claimed it as their own. But things were just beginning. During the rest of the year, the males began to purge the territory of any lions that did not submit. The Salala Pride was the first to be targeted by the newcomers. 8 sub-adults were living in the pride at the time. Infanticide is common among lions. It brings the females back around estrus again, so that incoming males can mate with them and keep their genetic lineage going. The first encounter between the Salala Pride and the Mingoli was no different. The 4 male cubs were killed, leaving just the 4 female cubs and 3 lionesses alive. The brutality and aggression with which the brothers took over the pride made the lionesses wary of them. Their cubs had just been killed, and at least for the first 2 prides taken over, it took the females a long time before they allowed the new males to mate with them. Not intent on stopping there, the brothers moved on to another pride of lions. During the first encounter, like before, they killed the cubs and scared away or killed any resisting lions. This particular pride broke up and scattered. Some remained with the newcomers, others dispersed, but they were relatively silent, not wanting to call to each other for the fear of being hunted down by the band of brothers. This meant that they could not reunite and instead remained segmented and unable to take back their territory. Over the course of 26 months, the Mingoli brothers dominated 5 prides of lions. These were impressive stats. Through their domination, they sired 34 cubs in just 2 years since arriving on the scene. Maintaining that status in their ever-growing territory was incredibly hard work. Their territory now consisted of around 66,000 acres, or 3 times the size of Manhattan. They tirelessly patrolled its borders, continuing to assert their dominance over the lions and lionesses they controlled. Barely any lions in Sabi Sands were unaffected by the powerful brotherhood. Often the Mingoli Lions split up to cover their territory and patrol the borders. When they called to one another, they would come together. Battles were common and fierce. Once an intruding coalition stumbled across the brotherhood by accident, one of the male lions paid a hefty price. He was set upon, and although he put up a brave fight, he was badly mauled. His life was hanging in the balance. But, mercifully, a bull elephant who had been grazing nearby charged the whole group of lions and sent them all scattering into the thorny thicket, saving the intruder's life. The Mingoli Lions couldn't achieve this level of domination without each other. They relied on each other to secure their prides and to secure the territory. But as they neared the age of 10 years, they began to show signs of wear and tear. Typically, male lions only live for around 10 years in the wild. Forming a coalition can extend their life expectancy slightly. The brothers began to slow down. They once stood proud and tall. Their thick, impressive manes magnified their bodies, rippling in muscle. Their eyes were sharp and wide as they scanned the surrounding undergrowth for signs of potential threat. But after ruling for 8 years, one member of the Brotherhood succumbed to his age. He was known as Hipscar, for obvious reasons. Those who had observed these lions from the very beginning of their reign had suspected this one would be the first to fall. Although the brothers were a tight-knit gang, he was the last to mate with any females and often wandered off on his own. Somewhat of a loner, the other brothers sometimes failed to respond to his calls. So, the foursome became a threesome. But age was about to catch up with the rest of them too. Gradually, as their time came to an end, the brothers began to separate. The second brother was Golden Mane. He had tackled a buffalo and sustained serious injuries, whilst a younger lion may be able to survive such an ordeal. For an older lion, it came as the final blow. Weeping wounds and crushed bones could not heal in the unforgiving African bush. He breathed his last breath and was still. The duo that remained were the number 1 and number 2 of the coalition. They were called Dark-Maned and Scar-Nose. They were the tightest of the brothers, often seen walking side by side, rubbing noses together, or lying next to each other under the canopy of a thorny acacia. They were inseparable. It was no surprise that these were the last 2 to survive, as they had always seemed the fittest and strongest of the brotherhood. Although squabbles broke out among the 4, especially when lionesses were in estrus, these 2 always reaffirmed their connections through grooming or a nuzzle. In 2018, after 8 years reigning over the Sabi Sands Game Reserve, the 2 inseparable brothers separated. It is as though they knew their time was up. They were spotted individually by rangers, looking emaciated and withdrawn. Their manes had massively depleted, no longer the rich splendor of thick fur they once were. Their ribs and hip bones protruded through their thin skin. They were just a shadow of their former selves. People who witnessed their demise felt pity for the lions. It was a heartbreaking sight for those who had followed these lions' incredible journey. Without an incoming coalition to finish them off, it was a slow and painful end for the duo. For them to have dominated for so long and over such a huge range was a testament to their power and strong bond. But how does one measure a lion's success? Through the number of offspring sired, the number of lionesses courted, the size of territory controlled, or successful buffalo hunts. To live to old age, especially as a dominant male, is certainly a measure of success. To have survived all those fights to secure each pride without coming to harm was an incredible feat. And so it was that one of South Africa's most memorable coalition of male lions came to an end in 2018, making way for the next battle for dominance. That's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. You can also leave a comment with what you would like to see in the following videos. Thanks for watching. See you next time.